Throw away for privacy. Sorry this is long. Background: I'm a 30-year-old female. My brother is 32 years old. As the eldest and the only boy in the family, he was very spoiled by our parents. In his teens, he started getting into drugs, and things just got worse and worse. Naturally, my parents poured all their attention and energy into him. He was in and out of treatment. He stole things from me, myself, and my parents, and he was a nightmare to be around. He never got a job or moved out of our parents' house. Therefore, when I turned 18, I accepted a full-ride scholarship across the country and left. On to the present, I have very limited contact with my parents and no contact with my brother. I threw myself into school and am currently a PhD student in my final year. In addition, I got married. I created a family out of my classmates and friends. I've been to a lot of therapy. I no longer carry any hatred or resentment towards my parents or brother, but I don't want them in my life. The problem, in the middle of last year, my parents started trying to contact me more frequently. Then my brother reached out to me. He said he had been clean for about 6 months at that time and wanted to reconnect. I told him that I was happy for him and hoped he kept doing well, but that I was not interested in having him in my life. He was quiet for a bit, but then started emailing me again once a month. My parents have been texting, emailing, and calling me more frequently as well. They really want their family back, but as I said, I am just not interested. Apparently, they gave my brother my phone number because he called last weekend. He told me he had been clean for a while and was dating a really nice girl and wanted all of us to meet and start becoming a family again. He then told me he wanted me to go to Al-Anon meetings so that I could help support him in his sobriety. I don't know why this triggered me, but it did. I'm tired and busy, and being asked by an estranged relative to go to meetings for him was a step over the line. I told him I wasn't going to meetings because he was a crack addict and that he had some nerve to ask for any favors or support. I told him I had tried to be polite about this and that I thought it had been made clear that I was happy he was doing better, but he wasn't welcome back in my life. And if he wasn't getting that, then he clearly was still smoking something. I ended the call, blocked the number, and his email. My parents have been texting me, asking me to please reconsider going to meetings with them all as a family. I just blocked them too this week, but then I got an email from my mom telling me that I was being an awful person. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, not the idiot. Your family is not respecting your boundaries, and you don't owe your brother anything just because he's making an effort now. You dealt with all his bad behavior without his support. Now it's time for him to deal with the consequences of that exact same behavior without your support. He's had a lot of years since you moved out to finally get his life together, and it's great that he did it. But if he wants to mend bridges with you, he needs to lead with an apology and maybe a show of interest in you and your welfare, not a demand. Comment 2. Boy, does he have a wrong number. Al-Anon does not help family members keep their addict, alcoholic family members sober. That is beyond the power of any individual to do. All it is for is helping family members take care of themselves and be a support to them, not to the alcoholic. Sounds like he's not quite there yet. Not the idiot now for the update. Thanks for sticking around. A lot has happened since my last post. So after I blocked my parents and brother, I thought that would be the end of it. But life has a funny way of proving you wrong. My brother's really nice girl? Turns out she's my colleague's sister. Small world, right? And it gets smaller. She showed up at my office last Tuesday, unannounced, with my brother in tow. I couldn't believe it. There he was, standing in my workplace, looking healthier than I'd ever seen him, but still the last person I wanted to see. He started off with an apology, said he understood why I was upset, but then he dropped the bomb. He's going to be a father. My colleague's sister, let's call her Jane, is pregnant, and suddenly the stakes felt higher. He pleaded with me, saying he wanted his child to know their aunt. I didn't know what to say. I was angry, confused, and a part of me felt a tug at the thought of being an aunt. But I stood my ground, told them I needed time to think, and asked them to leave. I spent the next few days in a daze. I talked to my husband and my friends, but nobody could really tell me what to do. It was my decision to make. And then, as if things couldn't get more complicated, my advisor at school pulled me aside. He'd heard about the encounter from my colleague and suggested I consider the impact this family drama might have on my academic reputation. Great, just what I needed, more pressure. I was still reeling from that conversation when I got a call from the hospital. My brother had overdosed. Jane was hysterical, begging me to come. I went against my better judgment. Seeing him there so vulnerable, it did something to me. I stayed with him until he woke up. He cried, told me he was scared, that he didn't want to mess up again, especially not with a baby on the way. I felt my resolve weakening. But then as I sat there, I overheard a conversation between two nurses. They were talking about another patient who had been brought in, a young girl who had overdosed and didn't make it. Her family was devastated. It was like a slap in the face. That could have been my brother. That could have been his future child's reality. And in that moment, I knew I couldn't let myself be pulled back into the chaos. I left the hospital with a heavy heart. I told Jane I would think about being involved, but I made no promises. I needed to protect my own peace, my own life that I had worked so hard to build. The next day, my parents reached out again. They had heard about the overdose and were desperate for me to be part of the healing process. I didn't respond. I couldn't. I was too drained from the emotional roller coaster of the week. And then, just when I thought I could catch my breath, another curveball. My advisor informed me that my funding was in jeopardy due to budget cuts. My academic future, the one thing I thought was secure, was now uncertain. I spent the rest of the week scrambling to secure alternative funding sources, putting on a brave face. But inside, I was falling apart. I'm not sure what the future holds. I'm trying to focus on my studies, on my marriage, on the life I've chosen. But the shadows of my past keep creeping in, uninvited. I'm doing my best to keep them at bay, to remind myself that I'm not responsible for my brother's choices, that I have my own life to live. But it's hard. It's so hard not to feel guilty, not to wonder what if. Yet I know that going back to that toxic situation would only pull me down. I have to believe that I'm making the right choice, even if it's the hardest one I've ever had to make. Thanks for reading. My first wife cheats and our daughter sues her sister over inheritance. But when the town sides with my youngest, I make sure the ex and her family regret their greed. By donating the $1,000 to charity in their name, throwaway account. 1. 45-year-old male have 2 daughters, Sarah, 23-year-old female, and Chantel, 16-year-old female, by my first and second wives respectively. My first wife was someone who I met in middle school, dated on and off through high school, and married after college. During this time, Sarah's mom swore up and down that I was her only man, and I believed her because of how strict and religious our respective families were, as she was my one and only as well. I thought Sarah's mom would be my forever, but I was wrong as it came out that Sarah's mom cheated on me multiple times with at least 2 men. I only discovered this because one of the men that Sarah's mom cheated on me with had a wife who very publicly confronted her with video proof, and the second man confessed he had evidence too as a way to get back at my first wife. The guy that she cheated with was an old boyfriend she had in college and was possibly Sarah's father. I was devastated, had a huge mental breakdown, and had to be hospitalized. After I was out, I tried to forgive and tried to move on, but every little misstep sent me off, and it wasn't healthy. It wasn't an easy decision, but I decided to divorce, and Sarah's mom did not make it easy and kept using Sarah as a way to keep the marriage intact, as she was proven to indeed be my daughter. It wasn't until my Aunt Pearl said something to Sarah's grandparents that got them to convince her mom to stop being difficult. The divorce was finalized, we worked out a custody arrangement, and I felt so relieved. I eventually met Chantel's mom and married her shortly after our daughter was born. My uncle's wife wasn't happy about it, as she frowned upon premarital intimacy, but eventually accepted it. Unfortunately, Sarah and Chantel don't have the best relationship because my ex-wife took the news of my second marriage badly, which affected Sarah, and she also viewed my Chantel as illegitimate and constantly accused her of not being my daughter, as she didn't look like me. Chantel is biracial. Fast forward to now, my aunt has passed away and left Chantel a sizable trust, but only gave Sarah $1,000, as she found the idea of Sarah giving any money that she inherited from her to my ex unacceptable. I had no idea about this until the reading of the will, but now Sarah, her mom, and maternal side want me to only leave Chantel $1,000 and give her everything to make up for it. But I don't want to. Sarah and Chantel are both my children and should inherit from me equally. I do feel bad for Sarah, but have no control over what my aunt did. Am I the idiot if I don't do what Sarah wants? ETA. Because I keep seeing this, and so I wanted to make it clear. 1. Sarah and her mom, maternal side, want me to do to Chantel what my aunt did to her with my own personal estate. I didn't inherit anything of large monetary value from my aunt. 2. Over the years, I've spent individual time with Sarah and attempted to include her in events. Short of getting full custody, I don't know what else I could have done to make her feel included. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, not the idiot. You want to treat your two children equally, which is how it should be. Sarah's mom, however, has been the underlying factor in all the decisions that cause problems in Sarah's life. Sarah would have gotten all your inheritance if her mom wasn't a cheater. She would have gotten more from your aunt if her mom wasn't greedy. Unfortunately for Sarah, you do not have to compensate her for the destruction wrought by her mother. All you can do is treat her equally with her sister in your own behavior in life. Sarah seems to be falling a little too close to the greedy, entitled mom tree. Comment 2. Not the idiot. Your aunt's estate was her estate to decide. Your daughter is a grown-ass adult now and needs to sit down and look at the facts. Her mom cheated. Her mom was the one at fault for the divorce. She chose to be a jerk to an innocent child. As a kid, she got some leeway, but she needs to grow the frick up at this point. Now for the update. Thanks for all the comments on my last post. Well, things have escalated since then. Just when I thought the dust had settled, Sarah's mom decided to stir the pot again. She went behind my back and convinced Sarah to file a lawsuit against Chantel, claiming that Aunt Pearl was not of sound mind when she made her will. The audacity of it all. I couldn't believe Sarah would go this far, but her mom has always had a way of twisting things to her advantage. The lawsuit hit us like a ton of bricks. Chantel was devastated, feeling like her sister truly hated her. I tried to mediate, but Sarah wouldn't even speak to me. She was convinced that justice was on her side and that she deserved that money. The case dragged on, and it was clear that Sarah's mom was enjoying every minute of it, watching our family get torn apart. In the midst of this chaos, Chantel's mom did something unexpected. She reached out to Sarah, offering to sit down and talk woman to woman. I was skeptical, but it turned out to be the turning point we needed. They met at a coffee shop, and for the first time in years, they talked without screaming or accusations. Chantel's mom shared stories about my struggles after the divorce, how hard I worked to keep both my daughters in my life. She talked about Chantel's feelings of rejection and how this lawsuit was only making things worse. Sarah came home that evening with a different look in her eyes. The next day, she dropped the lawsuit. It was a relief, but the damage was done. The relationship between my daughters was at an all-time low, and I felt like I had failed them both. But just when we thought we could breathe again, Sarah's mom pulled another stunt. She leaked the story to the local news, painting Sarah as the victim of a greedy half-sister and an uncaring father. Our private family drama was now out there for everyone to see, and the court of public opinion was harsh. People I'd never met were judging my family, my parenting, and my daughter's characters. I was angry more at myself than anyone else. I had let this happen by not standing up to Sarah's mom years ago. I had let her walk all over me, and now my daughters were paying the price. In a surprising turn of events, the community rallied around Chantel. They saw through the lies and manipulation. Friends and strangers alike offered support, and a local lawyer even stepped in to help us deal with the media fallout pro bono. The aftermath was bittersweet. Sarah was shamed by the community, and it seemed like she finally saw her mom's true colors. She apologized to Chantel, and while it wasn't an instant fix, it was a start. I promised myself I'd never let anyone manipulate my family like that again. Thanks for reading. My best friend calls me boring at her bachelorette party in Paris because of my illness. So I expose her lies to her parents and watch her dream wedding crumble. I, 26-year-old female, recently attended my friend Becca's 28-year-old female bachelorette party in Paris. I had been recently diagnosed with an illness and disability that severely impacts my mobility and has led to considerable weight gain, making it difficult for me to look at myself in the mirror. I had communicated this to the bride beforehand, explaining that I would participate in photos minimally because of how much I'm struggling with self-image and serve as the designated photographer. Upon arriving in Paris, the planning did not account for my limitations. When I suggested using Uber or taking the metro for transportation and meeting everyone at each destination, I was met with accusations of being boring by the bride. I decided to suck it up and go through the walks, despite enduring 2-hour walks and being left behind by the bridal party anyway. It again made me wonder why I was being made to put myself through pain when I would just be left behind and ignored. I wish I was kidding when I say taking photos of the bride would last around 5 hours, and whenever any of the bridal party would branch off to do anything other than take photos of the bride, like take phone calls or even run off to get food or drinks for the room, I think back to when I went to go get some ice to ice my ankle as well. We'd be labeled as boring. The situation escalated when I was coerced into solo photos for Instagram, despite my protest due to body dysmorphia. Feeling uncomfortable and disrespected, I reluctantly complied, but waved away at the photos, not wanting to look at them, and then getting a bunch of sighs and eye-rolling from the bride. We sat down to eat at a restaurant, and we were made to go through photos. While eating dinner, take more photos. I nodded politely. I just wanted to sit, enjoy good food, talk, and again I was happy to take the photos. The bride got extremely mad at me this time, saying, "You know you're getting on my nerves with how much you're disinterested with this. No one cares about your fat butt or your issues. You've been ruining this whole trip for me just because you won't do what I've asked. Get over yourself. This trip is about me." I could feel myself starting to cry, and I got up and said, "You know you're right," and excused myself to the bathroom, paid my part of the bill, left the restaurant, and started purchasing my Eurostar tickets, took an Uber back to the hotel, and packed my stuff and left for London. Realizing I had left, I was bombarded with texts from the bridal party, accusing me of making the bride cry and labeling me as selfish. I'm left wondering if I was wrong to prioritize my well-being and peace of mind by leaving early. Am I the idiot for leaving the bachelorette party early after being shouted at and humiliated? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I was worried if she is my best friend or a close friend or family related, because that is not a good behavior on her part. But then I read, "Oh, just a friend. Oh, you can easily cut her off." I could feel myself starting to cry, and I got up and said, "You know you're right," and excused myself to the bathroom, paid my part of the bill, and left the restaurant. Wait, you already did not the idiot. Comment 2, not the idiot. You communicated what you were comfortable with, and they didn't respect that. Your friend giving you a hard time about wanting to take transit or Uber to locations, and then her cruel comment at the restaurant shows she's self-centered and not really your friend. Now for the update. Thanks for sticking around for this. So after I left Paris and got to London, things didn't just stop. The bridal party kept blowing up my phone. They were saying how I'd let everyone down and how I was ruining Becca's big moment. I was feeling pretty low, but I knew I had to stand my ground. I didn't reply to any of their messages. Back home, I was trying to get back into my routine, but my mind kept going back to Paris. I was hurt, but I also felt guilty. I mean, Becca and I had been friends since high school. We'd been through a lot together. But this trip showed me a side of her I didn't recognize. It was like she didn't even see me as a person with my own struggles anymore. Then, 2 days after I got back, I got a call from Becca. She was crying, saying she was sorry and that she didn't mean any of the things she said. She told me she was stressed about the wedding and took it out on me. I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to forgive her, but another part of me was still so angry. But here's the thing. During that call, Becca let slip something that made my stomach drop. She mentioned how she'd been fighting with her fiancé about the wedding costs. And then she said, "It's not like we can ask your parents for more money like we did for the bachelorette party." I was confused. My parents? What did they have to do with this? Turns out, Becca had gone behind my back before the trip and asked my parents for money to help cover the costs. She told them it was a surprise for me to make the trip easier with my mobility issues. My parents, wanting to help, gave her a pretty big sum, but none of that money was used for accessibility or anything for me. It was all for the extravagant stuff Becca wanted. I was furious. I felt betrayed. Not only had Becca been insensitive during the trip, but she'd also lied to my parents and used me as an excuse to get more money. I had to make a choice. Do I tell my parents what happened, or do I let it go to not cause more drama? I decided I couldn't let it slide. I told my parents everything, They were shocked and hurt, but they were glad I told them. They decided to confront Becca's parents about it. It was a mess. There were a lot of arguments and tears. Becca's wedding was the following week, and I was supposed to be a bridesmaid. But after everything that happened, I just couldn't do it. I told Becca I wouldn't be coming to the wedding. She begged me to reconsider, saying she needed me there. But I couldn't just forget everything and pretend we were fine. The day of the wedding, I stayed home. I saw the pictures later on social media. It looked like a beautiful wedding, but I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness that I wasn't there. It's been a few days since then, and I've had some time to think. I'm starting to feel more at peace with my decision. I stood up for myself, and I think that's important. I'm also starting to look for new ways to manage my condition and focus on my own happiness. Thanks for reading. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.